Welcome back to Switch to Linux. Well, we're going to have a look at another distro review today. We're going to be looking at Neptune 8, which just dropped. This is 8.0 Juna. And Neptune is a nice little, this is a nice little distribution based on Debian. And the idea behind it is kind of like the immutable or the more containerized systems, or the discussions we've been having about Flatpaks and snaps, having an immutable system with the apps coming in as containers. They kind of had this approach before that was a thing. What the idea behind Neptune is to have a Debian core, which was always extraordinarily stable, but the one criticism of Debian is having outdated packages. And so what Neptune does is it gives you a core Debian, but then it will give you an updated desktop environment where they focus on Plasma. And then they will have a separate supplemental software repository, which gives you repository versions of applications, which will work particularly if they're part of the KDE framework. And so that really is what the approach here is. Now, they also have the extra added feature that Neptune is really designed also to be working on a USB stick. So we're going to do a multifaceted video here today. First part is we're going to have a look at it in the virtual machine. Actually, first part, we're going to look at the website. Then we're going to have a look at it in a virtual machine. And then I have flashed it onto this USB drive, which is unfortunately a 2.0 drive. It's the only drive I had handy available right now. But we flashed it onto that. And then we're going to look at what it looks like on a persistent. So on the ISO live file, there is an application to automatically create a persistent drive. And so you can use the live key with a persistence to be able to have a USB portable version of the distro without having to install it on the actual hardware. So I'm going to pull out another laptop and we're going to have a look at what that looks like as well. So let's go ahead and start looking first at the website. So looking over here at the website, you can head on over here. It's NeptuneOS.com. This is the information on Juna, which is based on Debian 12 Bookworm. Kernel is version 6.1, and it has newer versions. Now, as of right now, since Debian just was released and Neptune 8 was just released, probably their Plasma versions are going to be the same, if not, exactly the same. They're going to be very compatible. And so with that, then what we're going to see is as Debian 12 gets older and older, Plasma versions aren't going to update, but the Neptune is going to update the Plasma, keeping it in track with how Plasma works and then making sure that it's working well with Debian. And so there we have how they're working with this, and they use this by having a few different repositories involved, as they mention on their About Neptune tab. So over here they mention that it ships with modern KDE Plasma desktop main view on good-looking multimedia system, allowing to get good work done. And there is a lot of software that if you use it, it's going to be awesome to have it pre-installed. If you don't, it's going to feel like a little bit of bloat. We'll get into what that is in a bit. But it also is a system flexible to use on USB sticks. So we've developed applications like USB installer as well as a persistent creator. I did not see a USB installer. We're going to go ahead and look for that when we boot up the USB stick, but we're going to attempt to create the live partition, and who knows, maybe that part of the video will flop. Maybe I need a little bit more information. I hunted around for how to get that working, didn't see anything on quick examination. But they talk about their main focus is an elegant user experience out of the box. So again, it's shipping with Debian, but it has multimedia tools, codecs, Flash player. Why? Flash is dead. Audio and video player, and multimedia being a core feature of Neptune. So they talk about the two-man team of the Neptune developers, and then down here we talk about the repositories. So they have the main Debian repositories. They have a separate one for the KDE repository, and then they will have another repository for the software. So that is what they have. So with that, we're going to go ahead and boot this up in a virtual machine first. This is installed on on a virtual machine. We're going to have a look at what this is going to look like out of the box, and then once that's done, then we're going to boot up the ISO on the USB stick and go ahead and test that out. Now, I will say, as it is starting to boot up over here before we move over there, I did attempt to plug the USB drive in, give the full permissions to it over on VirtualBox, and attempt to install onto that USB drive. It would not let me. It would only allow me to install onto the drives, like the SDA drive that was in there. So I'm not sure if that was an issue with VirtualBox. Usually it would. That's actually how I do some distro installs onto USB drives. I've done that before with Peppermint, but I was not actually able to install it to that. The only thing I was able to see was your just the main drive in the system. So now let's go ahead and transition over to the virtual machine, and we'll look at what that looks like. All right, so here we have landed on the Neptune desktop, and you can see we have Discover. Now, if you've used Neptune in the past, there used to be a separate tool called Muon, which was in here for installing software. Mostly they did that because of the ability to add flat packs from the GUI. And but since Discover now allows you to do that, then they've actually taken that system out of there and are relying entirely on Discover for the software repository. So first, let's go ahead and have a look at the software, and we'll see if this seems bloated to you or not. Again, it's going to depend on how many tools you want out of the box. So we have almost the whole suite of LibreOffice. We are missing the database software, easily to install though. We have a USB image writer, Latte, Arc, Kate, Kcalc, Kfine, Spectacle, which is a good screen grab. We have Pulse Audio volume control, so it makes me wonder, are we still using Pulse Audio? I know Debian 12 switched to Pipewire by default, but it looks like they might have gone back, or maybe Pulse Audio is doing that. Let's have a look at our system monitor real quick. That'll tell us if we're running Pulse Audio, if we're running Pipewire. Let me have a look at our processes, and okay, the Pipewire Pulse. Okay, so it does appear that Pipewire is running, but Pulse Audio is still enabled to manage that. So yes, we are still running Pipewire. Okay, wasn't completely sure about that, but let's go ahead and proceed on. All right, so we have a Grub Customizer, our system settings, we have Kate, we have GIMP, GwenView, ImageMagick, Inkscape, KChooser, Ocular, Scanlight. And under graphics, oh, hold on, I was just there. There we are, KDE Connect, KDE Connect SMS. We have Conqueror. Of course, notice that Chromium is your default web browser, but we do have Conqueror in here as well, and Thunderbird is given for email applications. Under our multimedia, this is where there's a lot of stuff that you may or may not want. We have Encode, we have VLC, we have Kdenlive, we have Ardor. Of course, if you're not into music production, you probably don't have a reason for Ardor on there, but there's that. There's Audacity. And under games, we just have a couple of K games on there. And then under our system settings, we do have a back in time, which I believe is a system restore point, if I remember correctly. I'm not 100% sure about that. Who knows? It could be a personal backup system. I don't know. And then there's our image writer. We have a KDE partition manager. We have time shift. Okay, so back in time, I don't know. If we're shipping time shift as well, back in time might be for personal files. I don't know. Like I said, you can watch my video on the backups and backup processes on Debian. I'm not a huge fan of using of system restore points, and as far as personal backups, I usually just manually copy over the things that I need. Especially here in Linux, it's so much easier. We do have ZuluCrypt for encryption, and we have HTOP. Speaking of HTOP, let's go ahead and load that up, see what type of system resources we're running. So we're running right now at 765 megabytes, which is shockingly low. Definitely a good lightweight system. There's science and math, and of course our power settings, everything under the sun. So that's what we have out of the box. So it looks like a nice, fully functional system. We have all the basic system tools that you might need, and overall the thing looks like it's pretty good. Now under Discover, let's go ahead and have a look at the various options that we have. So that actually got itself set up there way faster than the GNOME store does. All right, so here's Linux vendor firmware stack. Here's so there's FlatHub. So it looks like if we just add FlatHub, let's go ahead and click on that button and see what that does. Does that open a web browser, or does that actually give us Flatpak software in there? Let's go ahead and search for Audacity. I know it's already installed, but I want to go ahead and have a brief look at it. All right, so searching for Audacity, we can see that the software is already installed. We have a remove, we have a launch, and from our sources button, you can see that it is coming from the Debian stable main 3.2.4. They also have the option for a FlatHub version at 3.3.3. So we can see that the system is pulling in Flatpaks. So that does give us a nice ability to install Flatpaks out of the box on the system. And let's see if there's any Flatpaks installed. Pull up a terminal here, UX term. Looks like we have two different terminal options. So Flatpak list. And there's no Flatpaks. Just for fun, let's see snap list. And snap is not even installed. So you guys that don't like snaps, that's like me, my kind of guys, then there's no snaps installed. Snap, you can install it if you want to, but it's not installed by default. So there we actually have the basic tools, the basic systems. Overall, it looks pretty good. We can see we have some updates to install down here. And this is going to give us any software updates. So we can see we have some updates to the Chromium web browser. We have some updates to LibreOffice, GStreamer Media Codecs, and then a few other packages. So you have the full ability here to choose which updates you're going to run. So the system works out pretty well. Overall, it feels like a really nice, easy to use system. If you want to have that core of Debian being stable, but you want some of the latest software to be updating without having to rely on Flatpaks as much, then this might actually be a really good system. So there's our look at the virtual machine. Now we're actually going to pull out a computer and we will go ahead and see what this looks like on a booting up on a live key with a persistent volume. So here we are on the desktop on the computer. Now this is running on a Dell Inspiron Core i5, I forget which generation, 8 gigs of RAM. And so that's our system resources on this computer here. I'm not seeing a about system to give us a exact information about what we want. Let's see if the info center has that. There we are. So there is the information. This is on real hardware, and we are capturing with the capture card what is on the system. So of course this is a live key, and remember that the information on the Neptune website says down here, it ships with modern KDE. It also is a system which is flexible and very useful on USB sticks. Therefore, we developed easy-to-use applications like USB installer, as well as a persistent creator that allows you to store changes to your system on your live USB stick. Okay, so that is interesting. Because I looked around for any other installer, and the only installer that we have is the installer that comes with the main system. So this will actually allow us, I did check this, and it will actually allow you to install, let me unplug the internet real quick and plug in a USB drive. So I'm not sure why it did not let me select the USB stick as an install option before when I did it on the virtual machine. But let me go ahead and plug that guy back in. It's going to give us a couple of warnings here, not the internet, no power, blah, blah, blah. And now that you can see, we can install it onto USB stick. Now, I'm not sure if that's going to try and put the master boot record also on the USB stick, which is going to allow us to boot from the USB drive if we move it off of this computer and onto another one. I don't know. And I'm not going to risk messing up this particular computer to find that out. But what we do see here is that there is not there's not a separate USB installer anywhere. And so this has left me to wonder, is it the live key that they're talking about running with the installation? So there's a few ways that we can go ahead and test this here. The first is there is a persistent creator over here that is not on the system once you have it installed. And so what this is going to do here is it's going to have us select a USB stick. I'm not sure why we have two options here. There's only one USB stick in here, and that is the one running the live key. I hit OK, and I have no earthly idea what it just did. What I do know is that if we boot up the partition manager and we have a look at the partition manager, this is my main hard drive. This is the stick. This is the remaining space, and you can see that it is completely unformatted. So it's not, it's the persistent drive, the persistent creator did not create anything persistent on this USB drive. So the other thing, though, it said is it would save settings onto this. So let's just go ahead and create a new folder. Now we're going to run the persistent creator again. And we're just going to go ahead and run that again. And we're just going to reboot the system here and see if that new folder is still here. Is that what it's talking about? I don't know. Which would be a little bit of a departure from how persistence works, which I will explain what I mean by that in just a moment. And now that we have rebooted, okay, there's my mouse over there. It did not save any of our display configuration settings. It did not save any of our new folder. Let me go ahead and fix this guy up here. We're going to apply that. I need to keep that. There's a few steps I need to do in order to duplicate the screen here. I want to do a replica of this, apply that. There we are. Now you can see what we're seeing. You can see that that didn't seem to do anything. So I couldn't find instructions. I went to the forum. There were a few people that appeared were asking about the USB, but they were all in Dutch, and I can't read that. So I didn't see any specific instructions on a cursory glance of the website. And I didn't specifically see any major documentation or install instructions. So I would say, in my opinion, the downside here to Neptune is that they don't actually give us information about what they say. They're talking about it being good for USB drives with a good persistent creator. The persistent creator in my case doesn't appear to be doing anything. And well, let me explain what I mean by that. So let's go ahead and have a look at our, not our persistent creator. I want to look at our partition manager. That's what I want to look at. Now we have a third thing in here. Okay, this is now baffling me even more because now we have a third. I have no earthly idea what's going on. I haven't a clue. All right, so having a look at our partition manager, what a persistent drive is going to do is when you have a live key like this, so this would be a live CD, they might call it a live key. You're going to get some basic boot partition stuff. So that's probably this one over here, being as it's a small FAT32 partition. You have this guy here is actually the minimal amount that you need to run the actual operating system we're running. And then we have some unallocated, and then we have some information over here. Now, what persistence does when you're creating a persistent drive to use with a live key is it's going to take this extra drive space here, and it's going to create some usable file system by that Linux distro. Now, on the poor man's way would literally be to come over here and double click this guy here and format it. And yeah, we'll go ahead and change the file structure and make that ext4 and apply the setting. And once we do that, what it's going to do is it's going to create a usable file system that anytime I boot this drive up, I will actually have the ability to boot that file system in over here, and I can take the extra data that I have, I can work on the documents on the live system, I can save those to that partition, and those will be saved. And every time I boot up the live key, then we can go ahead and run that. Now, Tails is a good example of one which is designed to run with persistence. They have their Tails live key in cahoots with the persistent drive, in which case you can install extra software, and as Tails boots, it looks to see if there happens to be a persistent partition mounted, and if it is, it's going to take any of the software that you save, it's going to reinstall it, it's going to make any documents immediately available to the system. Basically, it gives you a really good way to run any extra software, save any extra documents, save any desktop configurations. So that's really how persistence is supposed to run. Okay, we're not going to wait for this to do its whole thing. We're just doing this just as a sample. So we're going to stop. Can you please stop? Okay, I told you to stop. 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 Don't make me kill you. All right. So I don't see how this persistence is working. I don't see any extra information on the website about how to do any of that. Let's check tutorials. Here's Kden video, Kden live workshop. Here's a playlist on Neptune videos. Let's go ahead and pull that up, see what that guy looks like. And who knows, maybe there's a tutorial over here that will walk you through it. Okay, here's and yeah, they're in Dutch, so that's not going to help me out either. So there we have the real issue with the system is that our platform, that despite saying it works really well with a USB drive and having persistent files on it, I'm not actually seeing a way to get that to work with the information and the stuff that I have out of the box. So that's my big criticism for the system. So I'm going to say, if you're going to use this on a system that is going to be on a hard drive, you're installing it the usual way, Neptune isn't awesome. I give it a good solid B. We have Debian, we have up-to-date Plasma, we have up-to-date software, so the software is going to update a little bit faster than it would if you were only relying on the Debian repository. But as far as using it by the USB, I'm not really seeing a simple way to do that that's any simpler than any other live key out there. I might very well be missing something. If I am, please inform me where this is. I will be glad to pin that comment at the top. But I can't see a way to make this work the way their website advertises it should with a live persistent system. So that's my downside of Neptune. So overall, though, Neptune is great on the hard drive, not so great on the USB drive, but it's definitely a distribution worth looking at, particularly if you like Debian and you like Plasma. So go ahead and give it a try, and the link for the website is in the description down below. Thanks for watching, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux. Thank you for watching this video from Switched to Linux. This channel would not be possible without the backing of the program supporters scrolling on the screen now. You can be a supporter at Patreon at patreon.com/TOMM or at thinklifemedia.com. I also want to thank the open source community who creates such excellent software that makes producing this show possible. Please remember to support your software communities. Thank you, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.